당은 그지 장슈심 게데 드네 아니 장슈심 베기 돈바 송제 드네 돈바 송제 드니게 장슈심 베줘발라 랍기 인세베 돈바 송여가서 담제 네 켈린 제바나 신제네네 엔덴마 지게 장슈심기 네 지고 판예다 장슈심 베줘바 바로 지금 랍기 판예 이게 전진에 안델이야 대바 구바치네 아니 베수치네 존주시네 안지 제주심 다 제주심이 줘 바로 심바 줄라 아니 어두시네 냠는 베수치네 냠는 난고리에서 지금 생각도 디고르데네 쉬루와.
Good evening. So last week we spoke about how generating bodhicitta, one then reflects on the many benefits of the practices of a bodhisattva, in particular that they bring great benefit to others, as well as enabling the bodhisattva to progress towards and attain enlightenment. And there, with having reflected on the benefits of the bodhisattva, the benefits of the vows of the bodhisattva, then the bodhisattva takes the vow of the bodhisattva and engages in training in the various practices of a bodhisattva, as presented in the 6 perfections.
안에는 자다 안들이 쉬어야지 그생이다 직디 당부 디니 단다이 시에서 다디 쉬어야지 대터지다 담제신 다기 구비 주버자사디 다디 된다 시바들이 다디네 니월이야 대네 좀버 맞이나 원이고도 좋아 유로세 직니디 단다디 다디 쉬어야지.
And that was the meaning of the first 2 lines in the 12th verse, which we looked at last week. Therefore, just like I promised, I will devotedly accomplish it. So continuing at the 12th verse into the 3rd and 4th line, if I do not strive from today onwards, I will wander from low to ever lower states.
그래서 다들 당부 직니디기 단다 다들 대신에 가르치바나 지레 전주심비게 전주심게 전주심비 줘발라기세 가서 주비 돈바 송제 송년 전주심비 전주심게 판연의 전주심비 줘바 주비게 냠는디게 봐 판연 삼단 될라 대바다 구바시기에지는 베주시 냠는 지인스베다 아주 저거에서 다디 공도 쉬바네 디삼나나디 전주심비 연대다 전주심기 안주바 주비 바로 주시면 냠는기 윤대디에 파전제 될라 구바치 아니 디인자 전주심비게 줘바 바로 주시면 될이야 넬랍기인스비 베주시 나고레서 주바로 와다 되시죠. 다 되는마 되네 대네 좀버 맞이나 대네오도 옥토버 유로세다 다 대시시야디 균이 연등이 전에 삼다제 냠는 존주시 냠는 제바 다 되는 마 쉬야디 균이 전에 삼다제 근데 어디시는 전주심비기 제바 바로 심을 배수신라고 그래서 주고래.
So the first 2 lines of the 12th verse, therefore just like I promised, I will devotedly accomplish it. So the promise that the Bodhisattva has made is the promise of the vow of the Bodhisattva, when they promise to engage in the various practices of the Bodhisattva to benefit sentient beings. So this is the mind of engaging bodhicitta. And here especially the new Bodhisattva will reflect repeatedly on the many benefits of the various practices, so as to develop a deep yearning to accomplish or engage in those virtuous practices. So this is I read those first 2 lines again. Therefore, just like I promised, I will devotedly accomplish it. So these 2 lines encompass the new Bodhisattva reflecting on the many benefits that follow from engaging in the practices of the Bodhisattva. Now, the next 2 lines are a reflection by the new Bodhisattva on the fault of not engaging in the fulfilling the vow that has been made. In other words, engaging in the practices that they have promised to do. So the 3rd and 4th line again. If I do not strive from today onwards, I will wander from low to ever lower states. So therefore, this verse, the first 2 lines, presents the benefits of doing so, and the reflection in the second part are the faults of not engaging in the practices one has promised to do.
자, 대네 좀버 마시나 시도 대네 시도다 전주심기 전주심비기 아니 semge janju sembe domba sung dene janju sembe joba labgin se kan damje kelen damja jeba dene sonde ane janju sembe ge joba 바로 chimbala ane nyamne 제국고 dene 제국고레스 다 무디지 배제지 존재지 nyamne 제국고레스 dene ge nyamne maje bache ane 마 janju semdi 마 지금 동하다 janju sembe 자동 중바 이나서 월다 되다 좀 마제 바이나 데네 좀 마제네 데네 좀 배수진 제고 우리에스 데네 그세 마제 바이나 아니 냐바 베네 마제 바제 제주심 도야다 아니 제 자동라서 중화 있나 데네게 예 디버침 보사고 그래서 냐바침 지고 차고 그래지래 데네 좀 마제나세.
In the third line in the 12th verse, if I do not strive from today onwards means now that I've made the vow of the Bodhisattva, if I do not strive, as the verse says, if I do not strive from today onwards, then I will end up accumulating so much non-virtue. So this then is the meaning of the third line. If I do not strive from today onwards, make effort in the trainings of the Bodhisattva from now, when I've made this promise to do so.
마제 바이나다 녀미치 모사기 요바인자 안다 겨치마 가와기스 원에 오도 조와주로스 제자데네 원마 나솔마게 데네 나송에 때라 겨와이나 세상 나송에 때라 겨와네 디버사야 되네 날고 정의 주숨 차사와 디버사야 저와 무엇이 쭉 차상 상와디 저와 점진 수요의 인생에 삼로도 저와와 군원제데 데네 수비게 자와제도 무슨 저 가서 무엇이죠와 데네 수에서나 직선생 비게 데네 잠다도 죽으와 제가 저런 거 죽숨 제상한 쪽에 구마고 보이나다 심지어 소치베나 제사 디버사야디 다 눈을 맞게 봐이나 데네 저런 거 죽숨 차요관에 디버 차상 사투고래 엔데 디버 첨부 숙첨부 디버 또 첨부 사고래스 제가 개와 개위 냠는 제에다 신도는 공부 숙차고로 띵이 차네 제사다 최셰베네 셰해요 마 셰베네 예 고급라고 마 띵이 차네 안에 최지야 고급 배 용용 신도는 공부래 다 디버제야 되네 고급대 초가지네 다 고급대 배벨레 주위에 되게 차고로 와 디네 인사다 가솔 다디데 데니게 잔주셈 냠 자동 중 데네 가솔 깨와이네 다 가솔 때려 야게 디버세 데네 야게 가솔 기르 원이 오동마就是제상은 가솔 게 디버 디비 니가서 땡데래 할라야 디바사 데네 디바 또 좀 사만 디마 아니 지 도께왕 둘마 미 지이다다 녀왕마 계게도 순도 두고레스 원에도 두고르스 제자 데니기 녀와다 가서다 데니기 무티 제 데니 균능보기 거르체네 데니 동안용어에 바도메 바도 용거레스 제 데니 원에도 두고르스 데스모레.
So if I, as a new Bodhisattva, do not strive from today onwards, in other words, in fulfilling the promise I've made, I will accumulate non-virtue. Non-virtue leads to the fourth line, I will wander from low to ever lower states. So the result, the ripening result of a propelling karma, the karmic imprint that is non-virtuous, is rebirth in the lower realms. And from the perspective of the practitioner, the worst thing about being reborn in the lower realms is not the intensity of suffering that one will experience, but rather that one's spiritual development is severed. It's very difficult when reborn in the lower realms to accumulate virtue. But the accumulation of non-virtue, this just comes naturally. And in fact, when one falls to the lower realms, complete actions of non-virtue are very easy to accumulate. So complete action is that where there is performance, there's preparation, there's motivation, preparation, followed by the actual performance, and the act then is brought to completion. So those components are all there, complete. So when these are all there, the motivation, the preparation, the performance, and then it's brought to completion, the full ripening karmic, the full strength karmic imprints is accumulated. And when those then ripen as propelling imprints, one is likely to continue this downward spiral to ever lower realms, to ever greater suffering. And the accumulation of virtue becomes ever less likely.
Adonala, Digi, Garasam Dangoras and Adango Ducine, Janju Simbi, Janju Simge, Janju Simbe, Tombosung, didn't Jubala, Lebkins, and Kalin Chevaza, didn't Kalin Chine, Delia, and Sosugi, then Yamlin Cheda, Janju Sam Horonsi, Yamlin Nanta, de la Candangorasna, the Nigida, Janju Simgi Pain, Janju Simbi Joe Parochim, Labochi, and then Yamlin, some died, and Digi Yende, and the Chiga, Semjan Tamjigi, Sanjoko, Nudu Toba. Janjusimba Pabiokoba, Nudotoba, Delet in Sanyokoba, Nudotobada. Shen Simjet Hamjali, Pemba Getchimo Dutu Hegobadi, the Nigga Pain some large, Yahuri Shas, it's a Medelia, Devaki, didn't Yamlin Chevadi, Bemas Yahushu didn't go Yahuri, some Gujip, the Dembe Gujip Gagene, then Janjusim, Janjusim Gate, then the Tomba Sunyada, Janjusim Tomba Sunyada, and Jigga, Nijabala Wachella Ducine, Yamnaje, Ducin, Yamnango Reshe. And that Gun Yichan Samda, or that didn't Janjusim Ge, Janjusim Tomba Sung, Jenny Janjusim Jubal, Parochimba La Sopala, Labgins and Damja, Kalin Jj, then he the Majaveneta, then Dipachimbo Sagores, and Dipachimbo Sabana, Dibu Jibuting Nason Maki to Gores. Chazan Nason the Kebaina, Nason Tela, and yet Dipasai in the bed, Dum de Wushu, Lela with Yachimbosa to Gores. Then Sabana, Yaja Koale Makiwale, Nason Makiwale, one Yawal Makiwale. Dene ya dendrole tarkabu shiurishas. Chizan dene tarwen tarkabuje, dene tarwen janjusim yaja, and the chigi janjusim pabio gobato, sanjo gobato, shiu, godu said, dene gordos, janle pemba to duelia, and the universal corsair sembege. The nigger some daja, the union some daja, or didn't that the niggas that didn't go up to janjusimgi, and jeva. Sim Yamnija, Job Poru Chimber Druling, Betuchi Yamnichi, Sembe, that Ducin, that Yunding Channel, some Yamnichi, some of the Yagi Diada, the Gun Channel, Yamlin Majabaina, Yundin, Yungudusimbe, the nigger some daja, and the call Ducin, Jashisim, Najuba Poru Chibula, Lagu, Ejita, Ducin, Laptano, some Ducin, the Yunding Tone, some da, Delia, and the Simshu Gage, Dumba Nubashuk Charataje, Yamlinchia. In Majabaina, Yunion, the deeper than Yabadine, Yong Dine Ragidu, and some Daje, or Daddy, Yon and Besasa, some Ditonia, some Daje and Yamlin, to Shin Nango, Reset and Dala, then Yamlin Yagi, some Dama Tone, to see Indian and some Danyam Yagi Diana, and the Yunion and some Yamlin Yagi Dana to Shin Nango, Reset.
The meaning of this 12th verse then is approaching it in its two halves. The first two lines in the first half is where one reflects on the many benefits of engaging in the practices of a bodhisattva, reminding oneself that I now have willingly made the promise of the bodhisattva, the vow of the bodhisattva, which is to engage in the various practices or trainings of the bodhisattva. That is the promise I willingly made. No one forced me into this. But doing so will bring so much benefit. Benefit to others right now through my virtuous activities, benefits to them for lives to come through these virtuous activities. Moreover, I will experience ever more happiness now, and my spiritual journey will rapidly progress. So here one thinks of the many benefits that will follow from fulfilling the promise that one has now willingly made. And one does so to generate a determination to fulfill the vow that has just been made. And as part of then this reflection, one reminds oneself of the likely consequences of not fulfilling the promise that has just been made. If one does not fulfill the promise that has just been made, one will not accumulate virtue, but is likely to continue to accumulate non-virtue. And thereby, this will lead to rebirth in the lower realms. And once there, even worse from the perspective of the practitioner than the intense suffering experience is how very difficult it is to actually accumulate virtue in the lower realms, but how easy it is to accumulate non-virtue. And non-virtue, that is completed actions, so fully formed karmic causes. And this will result in one falling into a downward spiral, falling from ever lower state to lower state. This would be a desperate situation to be in, a situation without hope. So this is the reflection here in the 12th verse, and its purpose is to lead to a strong determination to fulfill the promise made, to fulfill the vow to engage in the trainings of the Bodhisattva. And again, the strong determination comes about through reflecting on the many benefits of doing so and the faults of not doing so, and thereby leading to an ever more stable determination to train in the various activities of a bodhisattva.
Dadi Geshe Shivala Chimbegi, that Janshi Semba, Digi, and the Janshi Semba, Papi Kansa Digi, Denigi Sam Tanji, Dushin, Yamlin Naji, Yagi, Janshi Sem Papi Govan Tovare, Sanji Govan Tove, Sanji and Digi, Yama Denis, Yamlin Sam Tanji, Yamlin Jiji, Govan Tovare, Saja. That Janshi Semba Saba is in a Kurans in a Denishin Sam Tanji, Yamlin, Yagi Tanguri, Sajiba, Janshi Semba Talia, and Dushin, Geshe Shivala Chimbesoya de Lapche Dirua. Janshi Semba Saba Digi, and Kurans Sam Denis and Yamlin Jure, Saji. Undushi Sungorwa, that gets you all a chimbe Sungorwa. Did I go Janshi Sembiki, Janshi Semba, the Yamadi Yamlin dus Nangore, she's not Janshi Semba Papa, San Yoko to get dus Yamlin Nachi, San Yoko, Papico, San Yoko Tovare, that Janshi Semba Saba, Kurans Dushin, some Yamlin Dushi, Jehore, says Sungorwa.
Shantideva here is advising his fellow bodhisattvas, you who are new bodhisattvas, train like this. Because this is how us longer-term, more experienced bodhisattvas are training. Train like us and you'll become an Arya Bodhisattva too, rapidly progress towards Buddhahood. And you, in my audience, you who are Arya Bodhisattvas already, again reflect on the many benefits of continuing with enthusiasm in your training and the faults of not doing so. In particular for yourselves as Arya Bodhisattvas, you are so close to the attainment of Buddhahood. So this then is the advice that Shantideva is giving to fellow bodhisattvas, both new as well as those who are already Arya Bodhisattvas.
Di ngaranzulia labja karanangora sene, chesanta ngaranzugula Janshi Sem Kyeya Marwa, chesanta ngaranzula karanangora sene, adusene, Janshi Semba Digi, dusene samdaje, and the Yending Chene samdaje, dusene. Janshi Besu Yamlin Chigore, Yungi Channel do some Dandus Yamlin Chigores, Dinashin, that Kronzine, Malzine, that Diri, and Chikronzim, me, Lutin, Topje, Church, or Cohopragi, that Janshi Sem, Yamlin Chigoko, Yudu, Gabla, and the Janshi Sembatiki, paying some that Yamlin Cheba, Najin Kronzina, Jamni Jeta, Janshi Semda, Jeva Paro de Chibatiki, paying the Paje, Delia, Debache, and there, they are would in Janshi Sem Kronzin. Yamnejeba the Naya Dinashi, Yamnje, Tuba Jokudu, Sembige, and Tumbakie, and Delia, Yamnje, Dushin, and Dushin some Daje, Janshi Jamnija, Janshi Gula, Gangi, 2 years, $2, Besishin Jangu, as a Jikje, the Indian some Danaje. The Jungi some Davina, or that ring the go up the niche Yudu Kapliangi, Yamnja, go Yudu Kaplia, Yamlin Majebaje, and I see somebody that Yawachima. The same D and Jinamia, Bacha, Divide Sergeant Dushine, and Jig Lelo Dushevena, then I Denishiven and Anson Bakila, Anson Genda, Gedina, and Divide Wangi, that Jig Anson and Anson Makiach, then Lam Yamnichi go up the Ram Noaches and the Negin Zako, that Janshi Semba Chatuya, Gal San Yoko, Korea Dunga de la Tartu, the Bear, Kalakawa Chasa, that didn't go up, you do Kablia, Nim Bezu, Jeje, and there Lam Yamin Guleki, Tuya, and Yamaje, Bezu is, the Mombanam Sekiwa Chimano, Inaya, Din Lutin Kabach and Topche, Din Delia, and Yamaje, Tuya, go up Realia, Bezu Jigins, and Dushin down to get Jamni, Comiala Sobata, Janshi Comia, Kiava, Kiava, Bezu, Dushin, and Nangu, Jehoras and Anzulia love to Snangor, and Anzu some two snatching Anzuna, and Jamni Jet, Janshi Gulakia, $10, Besu or acid and Anzula, she loved Chile and did it, and Anzula.
And the advice Shantideva is giving to practitioners such as ourselves, those who are not yet bodhisattvas but aspire to be so, we too should reflect on the benefits and the faults of the practices of a bodhisattva, but also the benefits of generating bodhicitta and the faults of not doing so. So we reflect on the many benefits that will follow for ourselves and through us for others from generating bodhicitta, and to whatever extent we can, engaging in the practices of the bodhisattva. And we should do so to recognize that this is all within our grasp. It's all something we are capable of doing. We need to reflect so as to develop a deep trust or faith in that it is realistic for us to aspire for and strive to achieve bodhicitta, to cultivate bodhicitta. And we do so, we reflect on the on the benefits, so as to lead to a strong determination to utilize this life well. And thereafter reflect on the faults of not utilizing this incredible opportunity well, but letting it go to waste. Reminding ourselves, if suddenly I discover that my death is imminent, and I look back at how I've used this last period, I'm likely to give rise to regret. I must not let that happen. Because if I don't utilize what remains well of this life, how can I hope to achieve such an excellent opportunity again? I must not take this for granted. I must not see what I've achieved in this life, or this opportunity that I've attained. I must not see it as ordinary or commonplace. Leading to the determination, from today onwards, I will strive to cultivate the causes for bodhicitta, train in the causes that will lead to actual love arising within, as well as actual compassion. Strive to develop these qualities within me, so that in this life, I can arise as a bodhisattva.
제일semba 코로나 냠는 가르스 난거 데니스 난고래 데니스 난고 난고거래 세디 장유sem발마 코로나절이야 냠는 지행절이야 무수 냠는 지행절이야 어느 순 직마 최송야 직제 대모수 지수 송비교 휴라 나한주기 토네 삼다나도스 땅고래 세디 나도스 니 리고라.
The entire text, like this verse, needs to be approached in this way, recognizing that Shantideva is directly addressing advice to bodhisattvas, both ordinary and Arya. But indirectly, his advice is being directed to aspirants to the bodhisattva paths, people such as ourselves.
나는 심진 탐지 편집이 상계 장매 대규르자 다네 장계 네바디스 어느 소유주의를 마유도스.
And Shantideva continues in the 13th verse, working for the well-being of all sentient beings, countless Buddhas have already gone by, but due to my own faults, I could not become an object of their nurturing care.
나는 냠는 지리가 야 삼는 아주 냠는 제할 때 간시 삼로시다 제 김세다 내게 통해 하는 냠는 지오고 다 삼다하 냠는 제다 순고와 지사 심전 탐지 편집이 상계장미 내규야 이 심전 탐지리야 아니지 심전 지게 펜버제바 시도 상계 변에 망부 폐진의 점블링 상계장매바 폐진의 은 심전리야 감당 매바 준비 취된 안 심전 망부 아니 펜버 지게 가실리야 가 지기 타바침비 리규햄바 유현들이야 타바침에 취해 냠는 데니 전주심비 고발로 거바다야 상계 고발로 거바 꾸요레스 디메비게 네 가시 네 자준비 고발이야 두신의 꾸여지 가시 네 지게 원료 고발로 꾸여지 두신의 샘전 탐제야 펜버제 디니게 샘전 펜버제 상계 망부 폐차와래 폐제는다 디니게 폐 취된데 망부야 지게 탈벨람리아 자준비 고발로 거야 다 전주심별람로 거 상기살 거가 거네 데니게 거진 망보고 야 상기 집회 야 직조 야 상기 회두진 상기 망부 회지 장매바지 두시네 폐제 현열이야 개심부 주 차와래서 그러다 심전 탐지 편집이 상기 장매 대규를 양세리.
This verse then presents, well, continuing in this section of the chapter, where reasons are presented by which we reflect and develop a deeper determination to engage in practice, to turn away from what's unimportant and focus on what truly has value. So looking at the first two lines, working for the well-being of all sentient beings, countless Buddhas have already gone by. So this immediately we can recognize is the case. Buddhas, who are beings without any limitation, have only one goal, and that is to benefit others, to help guide others to suffer less and experience more happiness, and in particular, to guide them to achieve lasting happiness. And thereby, or therefore, countless Buddhas have appeared in our world in order to teach and guide beings perfectly in accordance with their wide variety of dispositions and inclinations. They've guided countless beings into the paths to cultivate the paths of the Theravada and to cultivate the paths of the Mahayana. And thereby, Buddhas have been appearing in our world, guiding beings, and led so many to attain the peace of an arhat and the peace of Buddhahood. So many beings have achieved this state, independence on the skill and care and guidance of countless Buddhas.
다데 대규로 양세대 가르딩고를 세네 직디기 donda da denegi mangbu tarba sanje goba thoyada pabi janju simbe goba thoya phajaji me goba thoya dini chungare de kyangse de denegi chungare de ngarang zo da khowal khwashi de no an janju simbe yuke sanje goba thoma thoba janju simbe gyule kema thoba an deno an pabe goba thoma thoba an jiji lamma wa gyule kema thoba judusin khowal khor de yore so kyangse de.
For us in English, the third line starts with the word but. So this then points to our situation. Whilst the first two lines show the situation for countless beings, we still sit here, circling in cyclic existence, taking rebirth again and again without control, without freedom, suffering within the realms of samsara.
다니 랑기 네바디스 소유주율 마유도스 제자다 소소랑랑기 다 지게 네바 기위 냠는 마제바 셈 바이 마티메시 셈 바메가 와도 땅진 디바 망고 사신이 되네게 안디빌야가데 느죠 가시 조시원에 제 기위 잡아도 좀 마소바지 디 gen기 다 바이 템마토바 냠는 제마토바 디 gen기 사바레스 월 네바디 다니 제사 중에 디 로그도아 제산 다니 랑기 네바디 사실 김전지 소를 가르치는 하바레 람나 소소랑 바위 땡제 아니 개화마 주바제 아니 셈밤이 온도 땅지 디바망 보사지 디 겐진의 코와라 독신을 하려 바래 사실 나비 김전지 디스코다.
So why are we still in this state? This then is the third line, but due to my own faults. In particular, bearing in mind the context of this chapter, in particular, due to our lack of conscientiousness, we have accumulated so much non-virtue. Because we have not been conscientious, we have thereby accumulated non-virtue that keeps us bound in the self-made prison of samsara.
제자다 디링 다 전시 셈바티 송고 시거다 되니게 다들 봐도 두시는 코와를 좀 마르와다 산주고바 토마토도 슬하와레스 지난 니네자다 디링 전시 셈베게 나 코로스 전시 셈 코로스게 다 삼다사 냠나타 송고로 왔네 난고고레세디 제자다 전시 셈게 전시 셈에 줘봐 바로 지금 레비에서 페일린 담자지제 두시는 게 아니지 전시 셈에 줘봐라 말라바지 아니 셈바메 바이에 마틴바지 바미 온도 땅전에 진심이 줘봐라 말아봐. 니네 안지게 봐 진심 동야로 소바당. 니네게 자동로서 네바시도 중어 있는다. 니네 뭐바나 다 소유 주의를 마기도 하시되 되네기 개와 무효 공도 폐지 상위 소유 주의를 세네 상위 최된 세계 둘자 유책 말해서 그래 최년의 년에 고급을 말해서 그래 주의 세야 돼 이제 망고버스 소유 주의를 많이 둬서 이 망고버시 그래 다들 전주선보 코로나 냠는 나도 삼로 가는 땅 거를 삼두스탄 거로다 다 디링에 전주선비 줘봐 다도 봐도 니마 장메바 산예 장망베 폐신될 취된 자주모 고바 심진 망보 자주모 고바도 산요 파 전주선비 파베니 고바도 산요 고바 기에 된 중어래데 나다도 봐도 되니기 하샤스 콜 하샤스 딜하바데 가르친 하슈스네 소수기 셈 바에 된지 개वे냠는 마지바지 셈 밤에 온 따지 디바 첨부 녀바지네 니기 코너 코샤하세 김전 디삼다 세상다 디링 네다 전주sem께 전주sem이 줘발라 라긴 돈바송 전주 줘발라게 세비 켈렌 남자 제세 디링냠네 야포지 마지바 이나 아나 대노 셈 밤에 바에 된지 냠네 야포지 마도 바이나 셈 밤에 온도 땅전에 되는 디바 사바이나 되는 간소라 계진 되는 간소만 최년하고 고가 요마를 말해서 그래. 세상 개화디 냐 소와스네 공녀공도 패 다야디 이렇게 말해서 공고 소위 주의 당고 공녀공도 패를 주의세디 다들이 저게 상기기 최순위의 유 책 말해서 그다. 최년하고 고가 이렇게 말해서 세상 소위 주의 말이 되는 고가 이렇게 말해서 세상 되는 인자 되는게 삼다지네 되는 삼다지네 되는 제시심비가 될이야 당에 지게 배수 전류체 배수체세 냠네 지구도 선배도 신에 능고를 해지리다.
So the reason why so many other ordinary beings, no different from myself, have been guided and attained the paths of the Bodhisattva, or the paths of the Tibetan practitioners, and so many have progressed on from the mere beginner paths into the attainment of the state of becoming an Arya being. Why have so many been able to do that, and yet here we still sit? It is because we have not been conscientious. This is the faults that are being referred to here. Because of not being conscientious, we have accumulated so many causes for suffering. This is why we are still so tightly bound in our own samsara. And now just slightly change the tense on the fourth line. And therefore, I cannot become an object, or I will not become an object of their nurturing care. So the fourth line should be in the future tense. Meaning comes down to this. We are still such ordinary beings because we have not yet been sufficiently conscientious. And moreover, because of still being or still lacking conscientiousness, we continue to accumulate non-virtue. We still are so deeply habituated to coarse afflictions. Therefore, we continue to suffer. Therefore, we continue to accumulate so many causes for suffering. And therefore, not only do we suffer in this life, but we may well fall to the lower realms. And then how can one become an object of their nurturing care? In other words, how can the Buddhas teach us the Dharma? How can they guide us to cultivate the Dharma within us once we have fallen into the lower realms? So I will not become an object of their nurturing care, the fourth line. This means, should I fall to the lower realms due to my lack of conscientiousness, the Buddhas will not be able to teach the Dharma to me, and thereby I will not be able to accumulate the causes for freedom.
So you mayurdo said the Debada Moba Nigala Gore. 제가 대발을 갖고 오르시네 대신이야 상계 장면바 두스 주변바 레데 전제 최선비 갑라야 디 값소나 최시에게 상계기 응어수 제 상계전의 공어수 제 상계디 된 최응어수 되는 냠내지 고급 중요 말이스 가르쳐 버려라나 더 소수기 divasa dibi sem bame wangi divasa dibi wangi jenana koala nga son pa mudine khordo che sanyi jine chue ngosu shu she an tarpata tamje gibi gowa toyagi 고갑디 말아와래 해서 그러다. 제사다 누스네 라미누스. 제사 다디 이네다 디링가 안 자주sem께 전주심be 줘 하루도 심발라 랍기세다 전주심be 돈바선 켈린 담자제 디냠래 야고지 마지바네 모바이네 다 디링 고갑디 산이기 손야기 최슈 되네기 냠래 고갑을 라와래 디 마지바이네 모바나다 나선 디비 와심 바메도 다제네 바유마디 바메 땅바이나 묘목be 왕기 마선을 계진 되네야 산이기 최선지 최년비 고갑을 말해서 제사 수위주의 막 유도세야디 대바다 모바 니가를 잡고
This fourth line then, in terms of tense, we should read it through being both the present and the future tense. The present tense in the sense of explaining why we are where we are, why we are still such ordinary beings. And this is our situation we find ourselves in now, that it's difficult for us to cultivate powerful, stable minds of the Dharma within. And this is because for so long we have not been conscientious, but have accumulated non-virtue and are so habituated to afflicted ways of thinking, speaking, and acting. But now that I've achieved somehow this opportunity, I must not let it go to waste, for if I do, I may well fall into the lower realms, and then how can I become an object of their nurturing care? Despite their unparalleled compassion, their flawless skill, because of the situation I may find myself in the lower realms, how can I become an object of their care? How can they teach me the Dharma?
제산다 계시지와래 신비게 용어소 송자 장시선바 호랑들야 제산다 개왕 데비게 로망비디 양월야 상계 장매바 야 폐진의 최대 하는 심진 마보 코와를 줘야지 탈바다 탐지 김에 고발로 거 제산다 결혼 디디값소 결혼들야 안 최상계기 최송지 고갑 되니게 년제 냠른제제 탈바다 탐지 김에 고갑 뒤 말아와래 탐지 김에 고바도 있고 말아와래 왔어 이 가르쳐 바래서는 결혼도 이것은 연몽백의 왕기 아니 냐바 셈밤에 바에 맞대마지 밤에 왕기 연몽바지 연몽백 왕기 디바체제 되니게 디베 왕기 고 말아봐래 해서지 어두스는 말아봐래 해서 디냐마이 거지 마슈 송제 다 디링다 결혼들이야 아니 자주 셈기야 상기 최송야기 최년비 고가 말아봐래 제사다 고가 말아지 전주 셈기 전주 셈비 돈바송 되네기 제가 바로 저 레빈스베 담자 켈린제 고갑되는 예비가블라 다 배수의 제제 아니 냠는데 모두시다 도신제 오레스 계시 마제바제 되네기 셈 바유 된제 냠는 준리지 냠는 제 오레스 제사 되네기 바유 된 냠는 마제바 셈 바메보 오늘 땅바이나 아니 뇽모바제 뇽모보 온게야 제 마전주 셈 냠야다 전주 셈베 돈바 냠야 되네 전주 셈 냠야 좀바이나 되네 마모바나야 ngason ma de shi ba na ngason ma ge chen de sang yi chue song je chue ni ya go gap da nyam le je ge go gap de rag ma les je san de ne sa de ne ge sam da je de ne ge be sui ji zun ju ji sem ba yu de ji nyam le nang go ge sa de ngo su ja chen sem ba le na ge si yo la chen be da la bi song ye de sung go ba da.
The advice that Shantideva is explicitly or directly giving to Bodhisattvas here is that you, like so many other Bodhisattvas before you, have been led by countless Buddhas to cultivate the paths of the Bodhisattva within. And you have done this because you relied on conscientiousness. Now continue to do so, and thereby not let this opportunity go to waste. Continue to rely on conscientiousness. Because even though you are now a Bodhisattva, your spiritual development remains dependent on your ongoing endeavors. Do not let this incomparable opportunity go to waste. Through continuing to rely on conscientiousness, apply yourself and continue your journey towards enlightenment.
다디 비 전시선바 도스네 예수와 렌치 코로나 준주기 체도 제비 두자 되게라 돈 송바르와 당한줄이야 다디 슈라 간줄 가르소스네 제자다 여왕아마 산제 장매바 점불링의 폐진 산지 취된 냠술렌제 엔타바다 탐지기 묘고와 토야다 전주심베네 전주심바 제지 전주심바 파바고 파베고와 톱되는 산지고와 된 빠도메바 중요래 산지 빠도메바 중요제 판도를 야치 모두 제열때 이나당 결혼서 다디바도 코와로 코르신 되바리 디가르신에 디가프 되니게 산지에서는 취연야 고갑도 말아봐다 되니게 냠내지 고랍라요 말레스 디가르시아스네 결혼서 셈 밤에게 원도다 녀모베 원사 되니 디바 망보사제 디비오 원게다 도시나 나서다 냐와다 되니게 끼되제 두신 하바레스 제자다 되니 녀마디 고 마중 거레스 이내 디링다 결혼서야 대단주기 가소리 네 류된 톱제 나는 지금 상이기 땜바단 제 취지야 고갑을 유리비 갑라 수용서 상이 취를 대바 여바 안취념는 제게 돈이 dum바 여바 되는 고갑 유리비 갑라 디린다 고갑 유리래 되는자 결혼진에 전주샘때 잠니제다 전주샘다 내 전주샘바 코로나주기 냠내 제바 나신진에 konzu cheba dili jesu iran che di nashi ngayan che tuba chigi sebigeda besu che zunri che da dinege sem pamege wondo matangwa che sem bayu din che di tole ya nyamle ya ko che tuba che wores besu che wores gesi che dele ya ina sem pamege wondo tang che ni jingyo mo ba da di bi le ga nya che ba ine yang ngon so le ge che mo ba na ya ji dinege che che ya ko ra ma le sa to na di sung go le da.
So that was the advice Shantideva is explicitly giving to fellow Bodhisattvas. And then implicitly the advice he's giving to aspirants such as ourselves is that the situation that so many beings have found themselves in is that they have been guided by the Buddhas and followed the advice of the Buddhas well and attained the paths of a Bodhisattva, cultivate the paths of the Bodhisattva. Many have even attained the grounds of a Bodhisattva, and many too have attained Buddhahood itself. But for yourselves, because of continuing to follow the afflictions and not restraining yourself through conscientiousness, you have accumulated so much non-virtue. Therefore, you are still bound in the suffering realms of samsara and find it so difficult to change your mind, to weaken your habituation to afflictions and strengthen your habituation to non-virtue, to virtue. But whilst this is the situation that you find yourself in, you have, though, nevertheless, accumulated the causes to achieve a fully fledged precious human rebirth. And once again, have met the Mahayana Dharma, once again be in the company of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and are amenable or open and receptive to the Mahayana Dharma. You have created these causes through your efforts in lives previous to this. Recognize that, rejoice in that, because it is a sign of your capacity, of your potential. Embrace your potential. Do not let this life go to waste, but rather commit now from your heart to strive to cultivate the causes to become a bodhisattva in this life, and thereby commit to training to develop genuine love and genuine compassion, knowing that you can do this. It is not beyond your capacity. Do not take this life for granted. Do not take this opportunity for granted, but embrace it and utilize it fully.
레다 데네 자당 디르와당네 메 아한제 제사 데네게 자주셈 바당 호로지게 상예 장매바 주연제 데네게 자주셈 상예게 주의대 냠면 야 탈바다 탐지기베 고말 빠도 메보 거베 갑들랑 하나줄이야 데네게 다 냠내지 고가 말아봐자 데네게 탈바 탐지기베 고마 마타바지 고발로 코르디아레스 당한수도 삼나다도 삼당고고라다 도시네스 데네자다 디린 고가위바텔리아 안지메 전시센바다 코로나주기 냠는 나와 나신 재능이 제 냠는 제도가 지긴 세배 소수기다 데네 삼다제 다 소수기라 즉 잠니 제로콤 데네 삼자 탐지도 사요고바 토버쇼 세배 전시센로도스키 데네 계제네 데네 안도스네 삼다 고미야다 데니게다 냠네 야고 전시심 귤 잠니지 귤에 깨와다 전시심 귤에 깨 뉴도 깨워 쇼세비게다 게 단달이야 몰람게다 데니야 본절이야 쳐보고야 라말이야 인상게다 라말이야 니지게 쳐보고야다 몰람게야 로서바 데니 강도도 가서 계제 게어도 두셰베네다 아주이네 지게 세텔이야 냠네 야고 직 전시심다 되게 게마도베나 데니게 게위 바위에 딘데 게위 냠네 제바디기 다 전시심 냠네 지야 잠니 냠네 지야라 바차 침보샤야다 손음 침보사 디기 마오바나야 직나 딘드텔라 게제 한 냠네 지야고 고고라지 두시네 직 마이 야게 당신을 냠네 가서 전시심바 귤레기 이야기 더 고고브레그와 지단 디네 인자 두시네 삼다 냠네 지야다 안 디네게다 데링당에 두시네 제투에 고급주의가 제마도 베이나 다디 지금 셈바메게 원도 다음에 녀모바 콘로 되샤 콘로 녀모 원다 디버사디니 나설 계신데네 모반데네 고급자오기네라 사마레 드린다 베스시네 제후도 셈베다 두시네 삼다징아 주게 강토도 지톱팅아 주게 다셈 바이에티 데네게 냠네 제고고데 다 게스시월에 심베는 아주리 랍제디 디레다 아주 전주기 예 냠네 치가소데 롭장시비게다 좀제로시 디지고 차고로 당도 주주지 좀제 제부로시 주주 냠네 로지가서 지 신년 제제 디냠네 말에나 제부 좋아야죠 말와다 dondabe charu 제사도 미 가소래 좀 로서 차고로 받아 제사지 네게 삼다영 수수라는 게 강요 지용이 얘네게 삼다제 냠네 제투바이나 데네 don다 여바 차고로 받아
Through this verse, we recognize that countless Buddhas, guided by their incomparable compassion and skill, have appeared in our world solely in order to benefit beings, and thereby have led countless beings to attain the paths of the Bodhisattva and even attain the state of Buddhahood. I'm still a long way from being there, but I have the opportunity to live a life of great meaning. I will not lose this opportunity again. I will not lose this opportunity again. This is the resolve that we need to come to, and not just a mere emotional response, but a stable commitment. A commitment to applying ourselves, to following the advice that the teachings present to us again and again. Follow that advice, cultivate it within, and to do so, put aside all the concerns of this life that are of no importance. Focus on what is possible, on what is important, and one will achieve so much that we'd otherwise think impossible. Strive from this moment forth to cultivate the causes that will serve us well for lives to come. Even then, if we do not in this life become bodhisattvas, if we use what remains well, those incredible causes we can still create on our continuum will serve us well in lives to come. If we rely on conscientiousness rather than the afflictions, we will grow. But if we continue as we have been up to now, largely following along in a comfortable way, our progress will remain slow and faltering. We'll remain in the perilous situation that rebirth in the lower realms is always possible. So reflecting the way presented here, developing a deep but also stable determination to transform where we place our time, our energy, our focus. This is how to achieve the purpose of this text and to join the lineage of bodhisattvas.
아니네 다둥 대신 다제나 양다 양도 대신 때 만주에 내다 칭와당 제당 시약소 용어 교루스
The 14th verse. If I remain like this as I am now, it will be the same time and time again, reborn in the lower realms, diseased, ensnared, cut, cleaved, and so forth, all having to be experienced.
And then, Chidadung, Dishin, Dachena, Yanda, Yandu, Dishin, the situation, Yandu, Discurada, Chisan, Sem, Bayu, Tienje, Nane, Chikivi, Chonyam, Machevache, Sem Bami, Onto Tanji, TV Lega, the new Dushina, and the Chik, Jedivaina, and Dushevaina, and the Garshawasene, Yana, Yandu, Dishin, the situation, that the Wanging, Dipasa, Digitivo, Masol Pagia. The name also it in Delaya and Chick Divasaya, Divache, Dibi Wang Deachi, Masol Koval, Corsi, do Chene, Yane, Yadu, Cork, G. Gabriel, Miliki, Gabriel, and Dundra, Yavala, Gets of Dushin, Yana, Yadu, Corch, and Dushin, Cordu, yes, Yana, Yadu, Dishin, yes.
The first two lines. If I remain like this as I am now, it will be the same time and time again. Here we reflect that this position we find ourselves in is a state we've been in for so long, since beginningless lives, not being conscientious, but ruled by afflictions, pulled along by afflictions, accumulating non-virtue, circling in cyclic existence, birth after birth after birth, suffering through the various suffering realms of samsara, again and again.
Tisadanya Wadangasola Sopa Kieva Ina, Tenet Yadelia, and Jichike, Geotuagi, Gohopkini Mevache, and Divanasai Divache, Dima Seda, Dunhanyong West, Nandru, Neta, Chinwada, Jeta, Shefos, Nor, Jesan under Kieva Ina, the Negi Dunha, Neban, Jinegi, Nav, Lui, Naza, Dramaraki, and Navi Dunga got bottom of Yada. Then, and the Chingwa said the Gangbada, Laba, the Damjin, Dushin, Damjin, and the Jiki Mashiba, Dushi, Damji, Dunga Yongoya. Then, Jeda, said the Gangba Jeba, Laba, Jeba, Jeba, Lasoba, Jik Dushin, Jene, Majik, Susan Machine, Machina, Gangba Jeda, Laba Jela, Soba, Dushin, Dumbu Jedu, the Niki, Dunga bottom of Yongoya. Shaks the day, Shapas, Mashaba, Shatma, Shach, Dushin. That the Dunga Namin of Tamaragi, Dushin, Dunga bottom of Yungo at the Yungo rest, Jizan Denis at the Dunga Yungo at it, Jizan Yoba, the Denigi Dunga Yontibaina, the Delia gave us some Kia, Markewa, Chia Kopine or Rago Marva, Jizan Denigi, Nandroli Kevana, this Yungo rest, as she
The third and fourth line makes this very clear. Reborn in the lower realms, diseased, ensnared, cut, cleaved, and so forth, all having to be experienced. So the first word, that of reborn, reminds us that this is where we have been before. When the time comes to exhale for the final time in this body, should our next breath be in the lower realms, we'll once again be reborn there. And once again, we will have to suffer like we have so many times before, diseased, ensnared, cut and cleaved. We have suffered in this way so many times before, and right now, so many other mother beings are suffering in this very way, whether as animals or spirits or in the hells. And once there, just like our mother beings who are there right now, should we take rebirth alongside them, we will have no opportunity to accumulate virtue. Our mind will be so dominated by suffering and self-cherishing, our afflictions will be incredibly strong. Just non-virtue is accumulated. So this is what we have experienced so many lives before. And unless things change, this awaits us in lives to come.
Oh, yeah, that didn't that Dundrulia, didn't answer Tonsho Cuba, Dennis Mongdua, and Tungo, rather than TV not died, and then Yadan to loss of a Dineke got to Mashiva Kalia Dumne, Chitata, the Dumne, Soya Losovada, the Negachi, Semjan Kashi, Penny, Kashi, Gambata, Lava Damjin, Chunalpa, Johan Marabar to do Gambata, Lava Damjasha, Mongu, Yungdua, just a Denegi, that is chicken. 내가 저 통치스큐바 둔로디게 되네가 통고르와 니멤베다 아주 마통와 가세요로다네 and the Bato, that delay to roll the name, then Yawa, the delay to my chair, the Gang Chow. Then they get to one on the Dutch, Chue Shake, Shesa, Kuhabium, Shesa Yoma, Shaken Yoma, the Gasson, and Yang Yomarwa, the Niggy, and the Jake. Then again, another town, the chick similar might give a Dungoya, the Niggy, Chicken, taken the Hong Kong, Yungurua, the Niggy and Diva. Didn't I go ratches at the Yungores? The name is that, the name sometime you do, she knows sometimes, and not solid give it, the Yungure, just that the name same Bamig on the channel, down by now, Yomo Bakiva, and Yomo didn't in the Yungure, just that the name sometimes that the Maya Dandala, same Bahuji, giving Yamlenche, the name. Jamnijela so but I just same social gang to the Yamlenchi, giving him the chin to see what it is. Java that didn't really get it. Then I'm just Chichi Boko right in Dela Dusin, Chigi, and to giving him the one you're going to pay the Yungres. That then I to get Jenico Cove, you capla, Digi Gangantis, Madroa did that Madroa de Gansolia, Tapshi Tablo Yudiba, that Tablam di Bezushine, and Pa, the Nick and Asol Magiagi.
Amongst the beings suffering in the lower realms, it's just animals that we can observe. But from those beings that we cannot observe, some animals, we can see how they suffer from being diseased, ensnared, cut, and cleaved. We can think of beings, animals that are hunted and thereby trapped, and then caught after suffering immense pain, and then butchered, often without being quickly killed. And some are even flayed while still alive. And so many are caught by predators and eaten while still alive. This is just normal, commonplace experience for animals. Nothing extraordinary. It's what, once born there, they have to endure life after life. And in realms lower than that, the suffering is even more intense, where beings are cut and cleaved and again and again in the same life. So in these situations, what can be done for them? They cannot be guided. They cannot have solutions explained to them. They cannot be taught how to accumulate merit. They lack the capacity to understand. All they can do is endure, helpless and hopeless. The only support that accompanies them is their physical pain and their mental pain. They are alone in their misery. And when born in these lower realms, not only does one have to suffer so intensely and suffer in a way where one is helpless, one accumulates causes for further suffering, keeping one bound in these suffering realms ever longer. This is the true hopelessness of their situation. Recognizing that reality and not seeing ourselves as anything special, but knowing that because of the non-virtue we have accumulated through our own lack of conscientiousness, such a rebirth is entirely possible. We use this recognition to generate a powerful and stable determination to use what remains of this opportunity well, to accumulate extensive virtue, to cultivate the minds of the Dharma in a way so that we become deeply habituated to the minds of the Dharma, so that the minds of the Dharma become our natural response to life's events, and then thereby accumulate extensive merit and close the door to the possibility of such a rebirth. This is the determination we need to come to.
And in the one ma, and the Shinshaba Junwa Dang, Dedan Milu Toba Dang, Gegum Runwa, Detabu, Gonnan Namshik Tobar Jurus.
The 15th verse. As the coming of a Tathagata, faith, being born a human, and thus being able to habituate to virtue are so rare, when will they be attained again?
Daddy, Manzuki, the Mudi, and Jugi Milusion, Messiah, Sigur, Sungore, Jisa, the Shinshaba Junwa Dance, 지나간 저게 랑처가 진조와 다와기는 조와 주시의 랑처가 사송으로 제사다 디신셔부 중화다 먼저기다 디니게 디시다 디니게 가서 계제야 아니 밀류기 된저지가 원도 고반 토바이나양 디네 내려야 아니 디신셔부 중화 상예기 상예 점례라 상예 펴바지고 그랬어 지사 상예 펴바디 다 저거 덴바 상예 점례데 덴바데라 저거 지마도 펴요 말로 지사 상예 중 제자 중화 상예 중화시고 그래 상예 마중비 갑라 펴는 저기 원도 고반 토바이나야 아 최신념의 제고라고 말로 디신셔부 중화다 대당하지 난 지금 상예기 최다 되네숨이야 냠내지게 대바 요가지고 그랬어 아니 안디여바제 밀리토 그랬어 밀리토 바당스 밀리 대야 지금 최여사 여사를 깨가지고 그래서 제 디신셔바 중화다 대다 밀리토 바당스 되네기 아니 되네 개당 개곰루와 대다비스도 아니 지금 원보창와 록다제 많이 봐 아니 참여가 레기 탈로고 많이 봐지고 그래서 되네기 영화에디 배신도 공부를 해서 그렇다 개곰 자루 루와 대답이 권남 남시 토벌기 되네기 토야디 배 맛이 깔려하고 공부를 해서 시간이 온다.
So this verse is presenting the precious human rebirth that we have all attained. The first two lines present some of the 8 freedoms and 10 endowments that we have all achieved. The coming of a Tathagata, so a Buddha, has appeared and taught in our world. And not only that, but the teachings remain. They remain alive in the continuum of realized beings in our world. And we have faith in those teachings. We are not like the vast majority of people in our world who have no interest in the teachings or dismiss them. We actually have trust or faith in the teachings. And we are born as a human being, and in the full entirety of a human being, in that we don't just have this human body, but we have the complete sense faculties in particular. We are free of any severe mental impediments. We have the intellect to be able to engage in the teachings of the Buddha, the teachings that we have faith in. And moreover, we live in a place where the teachings abide, and thereby all that is required in order to engage in the teachings, cultivating them within, is present. We are not overwhelmed by wrong views, such as not believing in that which exists, such as Buddhas, or not believing in the law of cause and effect, but are free of such wrong views. So therefore, we have all 18 qualities that make this rebirth so remarkable. This means, the third line, thus being able to habituate to virtue. We can habituate ourselves to virtuous ways of thinking, cultivating the virtuous minds of the Dharma within, so they become who we are, our very personality. This is becoming habituated to virtue. Such an opportunity is incredibly rare. So when can we hope to achieve such a rebirth again?
개월 공부했는데 너무 세야될 디나라다 만족에 디체고 유우서 개발해야 원포 창화해야 이렇게 담아놓고 봐서 놓다 막혀서 디스코 디나라 산 뒤로래 그 대티 누워서 써야 될 디치마도 송면도 제가 내기 된 다와께다 조와 주산빌리든 토야 돼 깔리하고래 제자다 밀리 토바이나 산예 펴면나 산유 최소하면 송요 말이지다 최념의 제고라고 말해 제자다 산예 패베이네 소수기 밀리마도바제 눈으로 깨베이나 야직 최시하고 그러요 말로 산예 펴야 돼. 근데 지금 미 산예 펴제 최 제기 산유 밀리 토바이나 최를 대바면나 한 최시하고 그러고 말로 안디네기 안지 원보 마상 발라서 받아 집에 레게 탈로 봐 로달로서 받기 있네 안지 최시하고 그러고 말. 디네자 데네기 denjegi lutin toya de pe masika kale khabo re shire sa da dusche sonne dondala kar sonse jesa deni kale khabo inzam Dendige samdaje diring da janshi simba da Quran zulia janshi simba la labcha naya dile jesa diring danju yumili rimboche top ane top je dine janshi semge janshi simbe jobala labgin janshi simbe domba sung janshi simbe jobala labje kelen damja sungadi denigi ane milüge danju yumili top kawala nye kawe denige samdawe dine kokab yo bedile ya bejuye cheche sem 밤에 와도 마다와 셈 바위에 된지 매수에 지진냐면 제오래 해서 좀 거다.
Shantideva is only explicitly mentioning some of the the 8 freedoms and the 10 endowments, but we can take that he's referring to all of them, just mentioning them in a condensed manner. Here then we need to reflect that we have achieved all of them, and if any of them were to be lacking, that this rebirth we've achieved could not be called precious. Certainly if we weren't born as a human, we would not be able to engage in the Dharma, or if we weren't a human with complete faculties in particular, that we can read and we can see and we can hear, in particular that we have this great human intelligence, this remarkable human intelligence, that we can understand the Dharma and cultivate it within. And we can do so, moreover, so that's the quality of being born a human, but we have faith in the teachings. We do not just dismiss them thinking that there's no such thing as a Buddha or Buddhahood is impossible, or that cause and effect, this makes no sense, or that the teachings are just are silly and rejecting them. That's not the case. We have faith, but if we lacked faith, this rebirth would not be precious. And even if we had strong imprints to have faith, and we had a fully fledged human rebirth, but the Buddha had not appeared in our world, and in particular not merely appearing, but having taught and the teachings still abiding, if those conditions were absent, any of those conditions were absent, having the imprints of faith, being a fully fledged human being, would not enable this rebirth to be precious. We therefore, having all these qualities, we have the capacity in this very life to habituate ourselves to virtue. This we need to recognize just how rare this is, and therefore precious, because what we need to challenge is that we habitually or naturally take a rebirth such as ours for granted, seeing it as ordinary, assuming we had it before, it will come again. This is how we deceive ourselves, and have deceived ourselves so often. We need to recognize the true rarity and therefore preciousness of what we have. We have all met the Mahayana Dharma. We have faith in the Mahayana Dharma, and we have the capacity to cultivate it within. What is required is a stable, consistent determination to do so. A determination that is stable and consistent, so that all the other activities in our life, we engage in them, but we don't value them, we don't prioritize them. We see them in their truer light. Where we keep our mind and therefore our endeavors is in the Dharma.
Anjisa tsik tamadile konna sido jisadi kombo re na sedigi dade kyonzo topdo yore sedi chukore jisanda ngui di konna sedi jisadi dade topdo yore jisan dade dinegi da janshi sembadile ya dade danju miluri mo danju luden top din delia janshi semge kyonzo janshi sembe domba sung jeba nyamle jelo kelen damjaji dinegi gohabde yode radiores dade gohabde yobadi ane jigi baye denje nyamle yabu mache baje nende bame ondo tanju nyomobe ondo sombayna janshi sembanya janshi sem nyamya domba nyamala soba jumbayna digbe onga ngasune gewalene din namshi tobar gyursene en mawo bana dinegi 토야기 디니게 고급 상부 토야데 깔래 가버려서 남직 토바죠. 마음바나 토바라 토바데 깔래 가버려서 송거래. 디니게 디네 상반인자 다디데 배주의 제제 전주의 셈바의 된제 냠래하고 지고래 송거래.
This fourth line. So Geshe is just pointing out that our translation is how it should be. In Tibetan, it's literally can be translated literally either as if rare or when rare. So perhaps in some of the other translations, I don't recall, maybe it's translated as if, but it's as we have here. This precious rebirth is so rare. And this we need to have settled within us so that we have a determination to be conscientious, to be mindful of our mental process, relying on introspection, to ensure that we are not overwhelmed by the afflictions, led by the afflictions, but rather the minds of virtue, that these are our guide. Otherwise, this rare opportunity will again be lost.
남직 토벌 주루세데 남직 토벌 주루스네 남지나 간스 토그레스 톱투고 말에 세지 돈다직 다디디 시설와 다야게 남직 토벌 주루세데 고직라 데니게 다디 류딘델 톱되바 디텔이야 공부 된시 데니 공부를 다디 톱되게 될이야 덴델 냠네 약고 제바 이나 무티지 바위에 된 준르인지 냠네 제바 이나 남직세네 뒤갑질이야 아니 자주스 파고고 바산이고 바 톱두고레스 고라 데니시 바 남직세데 반 니가 잘 주고.
Staying in the final line, when will they be attained again? This is there, Shantideva has mentioned this there, to remind us that this opportunity is rare, is not to be taken for granted. We have no certainty that such a life such as this has recently been attained in a life previous or is likely to come in the life following this. It is truly rare. We should not take it for granted. We think in this way to generate a determination of reliant conscientiousness and joyous perseverance, taking delight in letting go of what's unimportant and taking delight in striving for what is important, holding the attainment of the generation of bodhicitta, the attainment of becoming a bodhisattva, if in this life or at the very latest in the life beyond this. So the outcome of these reflections is the determination to utilize this opportunity well, to not let it go to waste again, but to fulfill my potential.
나도나라 먼저게 가르송고라세네 당아주게 단후 아주야 셈밤에 바위 맞된 바지 셈밤에게 원도 당제 디바 데니사바이나 내야내야도 가손 마이에치네 안데는 가손에 동아 빠도 매번 연거야 강아 연거야 되는 신고레스 지산 데니자 대화 개화주의 고급기네요 말레스 데니게 강아 데니 뭐 타바다 탐지게 먹고 와터야 깔래하고 최고레스 지산디 셈바위 된제 개유자와 강도도 주고 그래서 안디 지단님이 대신샤바 중화세야 되다 제상한도 밀류 터와세 단주 밀류 뭐 톱세 밀류 터와서 지고 말 단주 밀류 터와서 빼 마세 깔래 하고 그래서 제상 디니게 깔래 하고 현자 예데 이나 디링 당한저기 단주 밀류 톱되어 그래서 제상 단주 밀류 톱되 봐자 될이야 다 죄념네 지역 고급 유디 qabla 아니 그런 저기 다제 잠니지 당한저 바주 랍절에 소바이나 대지사 저한테 대중이 밀려를 봐지 톱주님 철에 대바여 봐 근데 고급시 예디 갑델이야 아니 제 잠니지 고미하다 제주 셈기에게 배수 제제냐면 제고래 전리 셈바여된 명목을 줘서 마땅하지 바여된 제는 빈디 배수 진도 진 배수냐면 제고래스 디네 맞제 봐지 안셈바미 원도 당바는 명목을 줘서 다 디바사 디네 디베 원게 안진디 망호바는 디네기电상부 토야디 깔라하고래 또두 말에 사지 중국어요. 안 되니게 다들 약고 토바 들이야. 뭐는 저기 배제냐면 이제 약고 제가 있는 아니 냄지체 님지 안 좋아지기리에 잠니지 규례게 전시심 규례게 전시심 바 자용으로 내네 야 냠네 약권에 어디 배제네. 는 담지기 보고 뭐 토바 중국으로 와서 중국어거든.
Meaning then is, through not relying on conscientiousness, I've accumulated so much non-virtue, and there is the very real possibility of falling into the lower realms. And once there, not only will my suffering be intense, like I can observe, but my spiritual development will cease. I will be helpless. My situation will be hopeless. But that is not where I find myself yet. I still have this precious human rebirth that is so difficult to achieve. Yet somehow I, with this deluded mind, have achieved this precious human rebirth, I will not let it go to waste, but rather I will embrace with joy and persevere in the accumulation of virtue, in particular, training in deep and sincere love and compassion for all, striving to develop bodhicitta to become a bodhisattva. Because I know what the alternative is to remain deeply afflicted and to always be on the precipice of potentially a good rebirth, but potentially falling to the lower realms. I can close that opportunity. I can close that potentiality and rather embrace the generation of bodhicitta and progressing from life to life in the paths of a bodhisattva.
Dine sem bamega ondo dachi nyomo ba dile gechi diba sabayna dine kanga du shungres. Jisan sem bayu denje jamni je nyamne je ke jaju sem nyamno komba ina ta phayen dine yungres. Jisan di yor set. Jisan du chine sam dana kha ni she samne dine tabayna bayu bame ma den baje bayu kasa bayu ma den baje bame ondo sona nyomo ba kyana kanga dine yungres. Sem bayu denje gewe nyamne je jamni je de jaju sem la nyamne chebana dine yungres. 제가 다다 경험줄이야 고갑 여대 바디 가와치기나 드어바디야 소설에 담가 여바 소설랑 여대 바 최고레스 제가 다다 담가 여바들이야 경험줄이 균 디치강아 디여바들 경험 조대면은 디 마저에게 탑람 디 아니 야보 여바들이야 경험 돈이를 듬바지 될이야 조tum 베제 삼디 냠는 제고레스 야디 간제레 아주기 삼는 따나기 토네 아주야 sem bame ondo tane nyomo ba ke nyomo ondo shena na so ke da ne kanga de ne de yong go re sa chi che da sem ba yu de je jam ni jo kum janju sem la so kum su su ge be ju che kom ba ina da yong go kon de ko de pe che an ya chi janju sem gyu la ke nam ji ge se janju sem gyu la ke de ne janju de kom ba le de ne janju pa bi ko ba top je de ne sa yu ko ba top de ne rang ni an de ni de wa dan你考完了这些定义的态度不往头嘛些现实讲他们这里判断也全部入头的用过的这些都是呢两个节一跟说这主要嘛说呢要读你要的切但要读的刚刚的只有的地主叫嘛的但是야가 될 쪽으로 야가 줘야 될 삼단하게 되네 그래서 중국 당시 선바유에 잠니지 저주선 소위 두시는 검진은 야게 조고 그래서
So Shantideva here is encouraging us through these verses to reflect well on our current situation, as well as the potential for what lies before us. And doing so through reflecting on the faults of not being conscientious and the benefits of relying on conscientiousness. That we have a choice. Shantideva is presenting our situation as being as if we are at a fork in the road. We can head either in the direction that we have been traveling in thus far, or we can make this a life where we change our projection and progress towards becoming a bodhisattva. We have this choice of either continuing as we are now and continuing as an ordinary being, trying to do some good, but in general, the amount of beneficial impact we have on the world is quite limited. And the transformation of our own mind will remain quite limited. And in this situation, what Shantideva is trying to remind us, trying to encourage us to recognize that in complacency, we are actually, whilst we may be complacent, we are actually always in danger of falling into the lower realms. And if we continue just as we are now, the very best we can hope for is to continue to suffer in the higher realms. But we have a choice. We have a choice that we can go in a different direction. What is required is a stable and consistent approach to letting go of what isn't of much value, but embracing what is. In this way, we can change the projection of this life and strive for and become a bodhisattva. this is where we are. We are at this fork, and we can choose which way we go. And that we can make this choice is something that we all have the capacity to do. We all have a precious human rebirth, and therefore, in entering into or progressing towards and finally entering into the paths of the Bodhisattva is within our grasp. It is not beyond any one of us. Shantideva is encouraging us to reflect on this and make this determination that this life will be different. Then thank you all. Thank you all very much.